Something very strange seems to be going on inside of national parks in North America. Every year, hundreds of people go missing in these parks, but these parks are huge expanses of wilderness. So it's not particularly unusual that people might go missing inside of them. But Today's story is about an event that was so horrifying, the one person who survived it couldn't speak when she finally stumbled, bloody and terrified, out of the forest. But before we get into today's story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right channel, because that's all we do, and we upload 3, 4, even 5 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please send the like button on a blind date with Karen to a There is this horrifying creature that lives on a tiny uninhabited island in the southwestern Pacific that lives underground, and at night it will... Something very strange seems to be going on inside of national parks in North America. Every year, hundreds of people go missing in these parks, but these parks are huge expanses of wilderness. So it's not particularly unusual that people might go missing inside of them. But every year, of those hundreds of people that go missing, there's always a few that go missing under very strange circumstances. Either the way in which they disappeared doesn't really add up. You know, someone will be watching or keeping an eye on someone, they'll turn around and then turn back and that person's missing and there's not a trace of them and they're never found again. Or you'll have instances of someone will go missing, there'll be an extensive search, there's no trace of them, and then they're found like miles and miles away in locations that are almost impossible to get to. Now, one man, David Politis, who's a former police detective, he began researching these very strange disappearances inside of national parks. It started when a park ranger actually approached him and said, hey, there's a bunch of weird things happening in state parks. You should look into it because you're a former detective. And so after looking into it, he discovered that there were so many oddities around many of these strange disappearances. And he saw there was many overlaps and similarities that he really dove into it. And he's examined thousands of these strange cases. By his count, 10,000 plus hours of research. He's written 4 books. They're all under the name Missing 411. If you Google Missing 411, you'll find a plethora of information about these cases. He has 2 documentaries out. And so David, while he doesn't actually take a stance as to, what's causing these strange disappearances, anybody that follows along with the Missing 411 cases is basically led to believe that something is hunting humans in North America inside of national parks. It is fascinating, it is terrifying, and I've picked out 5 of the most bizarre cases that I've come across inside of Missing 411. Before we get into those 5 stories though, if this is the type of content that you're interested in, the strange, dark, and mysterious that I've kind of promised in this video, well, that's what my channel is all about. And I post 3 to 4 times a week. And so if that's your style and you like that type of content, if you could, please gently lambast the like button and then please turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of my weekly uploads. All right, let's get into the stories. On Father's Day weekend, 1969, 6-year-old Dennis Martin, his brother, his father, and his grandfather headed up to the Smoky Mountains to
Nobody's gonna talk shit about you, man.
On Father's Day, and they were really excited about it. They got to the same campsite they always used. They set up. They have a wonderful first night. They camp out, and the next day, another camper in the area happened to walk by and saw that Dennis and his brother were playing there, and so this camper had kids as well, and he asked Dennis's father, hey, would it be okay if I brought my kids by? They're the same age as your sons, and they can just play together. Dennis's father says, sure, bring them down. And so the man goes, gets his kids, they come back, and before long, all the kids are playing hide and seek. Now, Dennis's father would say that he had an eye on Dennis the whole time. He was just at a distance, but watching his son to make sure he didn't get lost. And so at one point, all the kids are hiding from the parents. And, at some point the parents say, okay, show yourselves. And all the kids, except for Dennis, show themselves. And Dennis's father has watched Dennis go behind a particular tree. He watched him do it. He was watching the whole time. And so when they said, come on out, and he didn't come out, he actually wasn't that concerned because he knew exactly where his son was. And then after a few moments, he yelled to his son directly and starts walking over and says, Dennis, come out, Dennis. I know you're behind the tree. And when he finally finally got over there, Dennis wasn't there. Dennis's father immediately starts running off into the woods, screaming for his son, and he actually ends up running almost 2 miles up the Appalachian Trail, just hollering for his son, and he can't find him. And then the rest of the family had broken up and was searching the area because they're thinking, like, he couldn't have gone very far. He was literally just here. And Dennis's father had said before, like, I watched him go behind the tree. I watched him. I don't know where he is, but I watched him go behind the tree. And so they're searching everywhere, and Dennis is gone. So a huge search, in fact, the biggest search in park history, ensues, with 1,500 searchers that included the Army Green Berets, so the Special Forces got involved. They are combing a 60 square mile plot. They're looking everywhere, and there is nothing. There is no trace. There's no scent. There is nothing connected to Dennis Martin anywhere. And so they go back to Dennis's father, and they're like, you have to tell us what you saw. Again, this doesn't add up. If you were looking at the tree and he was right there, how is it that he has just vanished into thin air? But no one knew. That was it. No one knows what happened. There's no closure. He's just gone, and they never knew what happened to him. Years later, when David Paulides was doing his research for Missing 411 and was researching the Dennis Martin case, he interviewed other families that had been at the campground at the same time that Dennis had gone missing. And one of those families was the Key family. And they had asked a park ranger where they could go on the campground where they might be able to see some bears. And so the park ranger obviously said, be careful, but you can go over here to this section of the campground and you might see a bear. And so they head over there and they're looking for bears. And one of their children hears a scream, or thinks he hears a scream, and kind of directs the family to look in the direction of the scream. And from their vantage point, they could see up onto the side of this mountain where there was, call it sparse trees all over the mountain, so you could kind of see in between the trees. And they saw what looked like a bear running along the mountainside, but with something slung over its shoulder. Except the interesting thing about this bear was the father was quoted as saying that it didn't really act like a bear. It was acting more like a human the way it was running. It looked, hairy and like an animal, but it was running and dodging between trees. It was holding this, what looked like a child over its shoulder. It acted almost like a human. And so you have a bear man that has been spotted by the Key family, and they bring this up to the investigators that are looking into the Dennis Martin case. And obviously the Dennis Martin investigators, they don't take this seriously. They think that they're just, saying some ridiculous thing for attention or whatever it is. So, it never really was entered into the case with Dennis Martin. It wasn't until the Missing 411 cases that it was ever connected. But there really was a family that claims to have seen a bear man carrying a child about an hour after Dennis Martin had gone missing in the same area where Dennis Martin had gone missing. In the spring of 1952, 2-year-old Keith Parkins was playing with his siblings outside of his grandfather's ranch in Ritter, Oregon. And when the kids were all called in to have lunch, Keith was nowhere to be found. And so the siblings and the family went out and did a cursory search looking for Keith. And when nothing turns up, they call in authorities and a full-fledged search is launched for Keith. There's no sign, there's nothing. And 4 miles away from the ranch, they find, several hours later, some footprints that look like they might belong to a 2-year-old. And they start tracking those footprints, and they go on for miles and miles, and then they just kind of stop. And it wouldn't be until the next day, 12 miles away from the ranch, that they would ultimately find Keith. Surprisingly, Keith, who had disappeared with not enough clothing to be out in sub-zero temperatures with snow on the ground and being 2 years old, he wasn't prepared for a night out. He was found alive, face down, 12 miles away. His jacket and his hat had been stacked neatly next to him, and he had scratch marks all over his face, but he was unhurt. When asked, what happened, he's 2 years old, he had said a cat scratched him, and he kept repeating that a cat had scratched him. That was the only thing that he could articulate. No one knew how a 2-year-old, in the span of 20 hours, could have moved in the middle of the night 12 miles away. Les Stroud, who's a very accomplished outdoorsman, he's the star, he is Survivor Man, he actually, because of this case, went out and tried to actually cover the distance in the allotted time. You have 20 hours to cover this 12 miles, and he couldn't do it. And he even said, like, it's not possible for a 2-year-old to have covered this distance, let alone survived the exposure to the elements in the time that he was out there. But somehow he did. And, years and years later, Keith was interviewed, because now he's a grown man. He was interviewed about what happened, and he has no idea. He has no memory of it. At the end of 1973, 19-year-old Charles McCullough, who was an amateur photographer, had been doing a West Coast tour of the United States, going to all the different national parks to photograph beautiful scenery. And by January of 1974, he was in Oregon and wanted to go to Crater Lake, where he wanted to take pictures of Crater Lake. So he asked his friend, who had an all-terrain vehicle, to take him out to Crater Lake, because his van, which was this VW beat-up old van, it couldn't have made it out that far. And as his friend is driving him out to Crater Lake, Charles says to him, kind of jokingly, if you don't hear from me in a couple of days, file a missing person report. And sure enough, a couple days later, when Charles doesn't show up, that friend does file a missing person report, and an extensive search is conducted at Crater Lake to find Charles. There's no sign of Charles. There's nothing. There's no anything about Charles. And his father actually flew out there and stayed for several months, just constantly searching the area, found nothing. So nothing is found. So a year later, a couple of backpackers were hiking the area around Crater Lake, and they get lost. They take a wrong turn, and they're well off the trailhead, and they discover a backpack. In the backpack, they found a strange-looking Volkswagen key that anyone that knew Charles McCullough knew that he had this strange key. And so when they found it, it was a distinctive key. And so when they gave it to police, it turned out that it was Charles McCullough's backpack. So investigators went out and started looking in the area that this backpack was found, which was 12 miles off the trailhead. So this is well off the trailhead. And near the backpack, they find what remained of Charles McCullough. So they found his pants unbuttoned and on a log, as if he was sitting on the log and then just disappeared into the ground, but his pants were still there. Sticking out of the pants were his socks, no shoes, and in the socks were his feet bones. There was no jacket, there was no upper portion of his skeleton. 12 feet away, they find a portion of his skull, and that is the last thing they find of Charles McCullough. And ultimately, it was determined that he died of natural causes. His family was not prepared to accept that, however, when you look at some of the circumstances. We have, he's missing his jacket, he's missing his boots, he's missing his photography equipment, his head is detached from his body. He was also 12 miles off the trailhead, and when he went missing, there had been approximately 5 to 7 feet of snow that had dumped in the area. So how did he move 12 miles off the trailhead in 7 feet of snow, especially when you consider he was not an outdoorsy type, and even when he got dropped off by his friend that drove him out there, he even said later on that he felt like Charles was very ill-equipped for the environment he was going into. But at the end of the day, it was left as, sorry, he went missing and he died of natural causes, and that was that. Bart Schleyer was a famous outdoorsman and hunter. He was just one of those people that you could drop into any environment, and he's not only going to survive, he's going to thrive. A testament to that would be he spent months in Siberia tracking and catching Siberian tigers. He was like a world-renowned tiger tracker. He's just like this super rugged, super confident outdoorsman. In September of 2004, Bart books a float plane to take him 175 miles north into the Yukon Territory in Canada for him to go hunt moose on his own for 3 weeks. He had all the right equipment, he was obviously extremely capable, and no one thought twice about it. When he got dropped off, he told the pilot, meet me back here in 3 weeks. And so off he went. The plane leaves and comes back 3 weeks later, and there's no Bart. Now, the pilot knew Bart was like a god in the wilderness, and so he wasn't really concerned, but, he went over to where he had been told his campsite would be, and he found the campsite, and it looked like someone was still living there. It didn't look like it had been destroyed at all. And then near his campsite, he found a dry bag, which looked like it had an indent on it, where someone might have been sitting on it up against a tree, and then next to the tree was his bow and some arrows, and it looked like an area where a hunter might have been sitting to call in moose, but there was no Bart. Near the dry bag and the bow and arrow,
I think I've heard this
bugs,
I heard this story
teeth,
before.
and a couple of shards of bone. Initially, the thought is, well, a large predator must have snuck up on Bart and eaten him. Except there's a couple of huge problems with that theory. One, Bart, his friends at least would say, and people that knew him would say, he would never get snuck up on by a large predator. He was so accomplished in the wilderness, like he was always a step ahead of everything around him. So the idea that he would just be sitting there one day and a bear would just happen to sneak up on him is pretty far-fetched. Also, in the area where his teeth and some of his bones were found, there was no sign of what they call a death struggle, where you're fighting for your life, you're smashing into everything. There's none of that. There's no marking on the ground or in the surrounding areas that a large predator had attacked him. Also, his camp had food out in the open, and if a large predator had come through like a bear, after it finished with Bart, it would have raided the campsite, and it didn't. And so the way this was left was he was attacked and eaten by a predator. But nobody believes that because that wouldn't happen to Bart, and the circumstances around his campsite didn't really add up. In 2002, Christopher Tompkins was working as a surveyor, and he was assigned to this 4-man survey crew that was working in Harris County, Georgia. And they were walking along this road spaced about 50 feet apart, all 4 of them. And Chris was the last one in line. And the third one in line would later tell investigators and police that as they were walking along the road, he would periodically turn around to just, for a quick second, make sure Chris was still there. And as they're walking along with no sound or any indication that anything's happened, he turned around, saw Chris, kept walking. A few minutes later, turned around, and Chris is gone. The third guy hails the other 2, and they go, and they're like, where did Chris go? They're looking down the road, like maybe he stopped, maybe he stepped off the trail, but they can't see him. And they go back they start walking down the road towards where he would have been, and they find on the ground a pile of loose change and some of his tools that would have been in his pockets. And then they see one of his boots stuck in the barbed wire, because there's a little barbed wire fence that was running the length of this road. One of his boots was stuck in the barbed wire, and there was nothing else. They search the area, they're looking everywhere. Especially the guy who was third in line. He was like, I literally saw him a minute ago. And there's no indication of where he was. But there was no sign of him. He was gone. So after this huge investigation, they don't find any sign of him. And that's it. They're just like, yeah, he's gone. They did find but it didn't provide any more clarity into what happened to him. However, if you look at the pile of loose change and things that were in his pockets that were on the road, it indicates that at some point he may have been upside down. And if you think about the entirety of all of these strange stories where they can be hunting humans, just picture in your head Chris Tompkins walking along and something flipping him upside down, dumping the contents out, and then being gone. Fraction of the literal thousands of others that are in the missing 411 series. And while many people believe that all of the cases in missing 411 and any others that really are considered strange inside of these parks have a rational explanation, even if we don't know what it is. Whereas another group, missing 411 phenomenon, is an indication that something is hunting humans in the national parks across North America. Some say Bigfoot, some say aliens, some say something else. Certainly the other camp in terms of what these strange disappearances are from or what's causing them. Whether or not we ever find a conclusion remains to be seen, but I would love to hear what you think is going on inside of these strange cases of missing 411, whether it's a rational explanation or maybe something paranormal or some other option. But I'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments, and that's please, if you could gently lambast the like button and turn on all post notifications so you don't miss any of my 3 to 4 weekly uploads every week. If you want to get in touch with me, please DM me on Instagram. My handle is JohnBallen416. Also, I'm very active on TikTok as well. And that's going to do it, guys. Until next time, take care. Her eyes were missing, her tongue was missing, parts of her lip was missing, and a portion of her skull had fractured, and a piece of her skull had been removed. Hey, what's going on, guys? MrBallen here from TikTok. I'm a resident scary storyteller. Today, I have a really cool story. It's actually one of the first kind of unsolved mysteries that really captured my attention. All of these kind of crazy unsolved mysteries that are out there. The too long didn't read version of this is you have 9 highly experienced hikers that go off into the mountains and die under extremely mysterious conditions. There are photos and journal entries. I mean, there's just a preponderance of evidence, but no one can make it. And to this day, it is one of the single most interesting things that I've ever found on the internet. So, in 1959, 10 hikers decided to head out on this 190-mile journey through the Ural Mountains in the northern part of the Soviet Union. Now, this was more like a mission to this group of experienced hikers, because in completing this 190-mile journey, they would receive their level 3 hiker certification, which at the time was the highest in the country. So they would be the top dogs in hiking. So on January 25th, they set off on this 16-day, 190-mile journey. The group, they were happy, they were on course, everything was going right. And then they reached this kind of critical juncture in the trip. They reached this mountain pass that actually was subsequently renamed. The leader was named Igor Dyatlov. And so they reach this mountain pass, and they know they need to go through the pass. And so they set up camp, and as early the next day, they're going to attempt to push through this mountain pass. And hopefully over the space of one day, get through that mountain pass and set up camp on the other side. So early the next morning, they get up and descend through this mountain pass. But unfortunately, a very bad weather system rolled in, and it pushed them on that the local Mansi tribe called Dead Mountain. And so they get pushed off course, they're not going to get to the mountain pass. And then one of the first strange things happens. For some reason, now this group of experienced hikers that should have known that their best bet
get shit on, brother.
Course would be to retreat off
what the fuck?
Get shit on.
Bro, you have hacks, bro. Bro, you have hacks, bro. Again, bro. Turn off your hacks this time, bro. Bro, turn your hacks off this time, bro.
Exposed slope of Dead Mountain, which means that they would be setting up camp in not only any number of things could happen, but they'd also be exposed to negative 40-degree temperatures. They're like out in the open, just getting crushed by the elements. They make camp right on the slope of Dead Mountain. When the hikers don't show up to a rendezvous point that they were supposed to meet at a predetermined time, the folks they were set to meet obviously didn't meet up with the hikers. They let the authorities know, it was noted that they had not made rendezvous, but because this was an experienced group, this was not let's send out a search party. It was more like, okay, they should have been here, but people, they know what they're doing, they'll get here soon. 3 weeks go by, and still no one's heard from these 9 hikers. Are sent out to find them, and relatively quickly the search party comes across the campsite on the mountain, and what they find is just horrifying. So the first thing they notice is that the tent they had been staying in had been slashed open, except from the inside, meaning someone inside the tent had slashed it open. And then in the tent itself, neatly stacked, was all their cold weather gear, or the majority of their cold weather gear, like their shoes and their jackets. I mean, it's all there. And there's no sign of the hikers. And then near the camp, like literally right out of this tent, is this neat set of footprints leading down towards this forest. And investigators, when they looked at the footprints, they could determine a couple of things. One, the majority of the hikers had either been barefoot or only wearing one shoe. In addition, their cadence, they were looking at the space of their footsteps, their gait, I should say, was indicative of a group of people that was walking calmly. This was not a panicked run away from your campsite. This was a walking calmly away from your campsite with not the right clothing on, probably no shoes on, down to the forest in an exposed mountain slope with negative 40-degree temperatures. So investigators, they start following these footsteps down towards this forest, and it leads them to this area right at the outside of this forest, right underneath this big cedar tree, where there's evidence of a campfire. And around that campfire are two of the hikers' bodies. And they're just wearing underwear, they're barefoot, and their hands had been like scratched. The tree that was right next to them had evidence of someone had been trying to climb it. A lot of the branches, as if someone had desperately tried to climb up this tree, but was unsuccessful. You know, as if they were trying to seek shelter from something or someone on the ground. But obviously they did not make it in time. Within several hundred feet of that campfire, the investigators found 3 other hikers' bodies. They were similarly underdressed, and it frozen. They were actually trying to make their way back up to the campsite. Investigators noted that one of those 3 hikers had a head injury that was consistent with someone repeatedly smashing their head. Those 3 had a strange rectangular bruise on their side, and then oddly enough, while they were underdressed, each of those 3 were wearing the other's bits of clothing. It was like they all collectively put on the wrong clothes and not enough clothes. Despite the strength of the 5 bodies that were found and what they were wearing, or I guess what they weren't wearing, it wasn't until May, when the weather warmed up a little bit and some of the snow had melted, that investigators were able to locate the remaining 4 hikers' bodies. And, you know, it was the condition that they were found in, the second group of hikers, that really took this history and elevated it and made it this kind of urban legend, because it makes sense. So the remaining 4 were found in this creek bed. It came to be known as the Dyatlov Den. They were buried under about 13 feet of snow. And so of the 4 bodies that were found in the Dyatlov Den, one of them had simply died of hypothermia and kind of was a lot like the first group, right? There's no severe injuries, really, just they died of hypothermia. But the other group, that was not the case at all. A skull fracture that occurred right before he died. The 8th hiker had these extreme chest fractures that really was the most unfortunate. Not only did she also have her chest kind of caved in, but her tongue was missing, parts of her lip was missing, and a portion of her skull had fractured, and a piece of her skull had been removed.
All right. We're Jewish.
Even more bizarre is in this second group, they had all taken pieces of clothing from the other, indicating that they had all died at different times. It was like one would die, and then the other hikers would take their clothes and put them on. And then someone else would die, and they would take their clothes and put them on. And I guess even stranger than that is the clothes themselves had traces of radiation on them. The Soviet government was quick to close the case. They cited, either a natural disaster or the hikers' incompetence as the result, or the reason behind this horrible tragedy. Nobody really believed. Nobody, as in the family, the friends, really the Soviet population, they didn't believe that could be the actual explanation. Early on, after this case has been closed, the Soviet people, they started to believe a couple theories. One of them was there was this local Mansi tribe that was in the area that perhaps ambushed the hikers, killed them, and explained the reason for the hikers suddenly abandoning their tent and not being dressed, and also the injuries of the second group that was by an attack by the tribe. But there was a couple issues with that theory. One, the Mansi tribe is known as this. There was also no other footprints leading into the area. It was just the footprints of the hikers that were, in the area. Another popular theory is a swift and violent ambush that, the group, they jump out of their tent, cut it open, they go running. But the problem with that is the tree line there weren't any debris from an avalanche like there would be, and in that area, there were locals like the Mansi tribe, and they didn't report an avalanche, they didn't hear an avalanche, and in fact, historically, there had never been an avalanche in that area, and subsequently, for decades afterward, there still has never been an avalanche there. Another popular thing in the first place is because when you get hypothermia, it can cause you to actually but again, that doesn't really cover down on the injuries of the group. And then, of course, with any sort of unsolved mystery at this magnitude, there's theories that range from, government cover-up to a Yeti attack or an alien abduction. The Soviet government kind of just gave a this answer as to why. It officially said that the cause of death for these hikers was a compelling natural force that they were not able to overcome, which that in and of itself is a way of putting it. It's not saying, a natural disaster necessarily. They're just saying it was a natural force, which is just a very interesting way to put it. But either way, the case was closed, and that was that. But in 2019, Russia actually officially reopened this case. They decided they were going to get to the bottom of it because this was a case that, it is quite high profile in the world of kind of unsolved mysteries. I think if you Google top 10 unsolved mysteries, the Dyatlov Pass is going to come up in that top 10. This is just one of the more well-known cases. And so Russia officially reopens it in 2019, but they were only willing to look at 3 theories, which was, an ice slab or a snow slab breaking and coming down and hitting them, an avalanche, or a hurricane. But unfortunately, despite diving into this and doing their diligence, they really didn't come to any sort of conclusive conclusion. They kind of ended it. They closed it, I should say, much the same way they did back when it actually happened in the late 50s, which is, some natural force did this. they did, that was it. It was really unsatisfying. The only real conclusion that they made in 2019 was that no criminal activity was indicated. So whatever happened, they're saying it was natural. It was not criminal. So with that, the mystery today remains technically closed, but unofficially,
What is that?
say this mystery is getting close to solved. And I'd love to hear in the comments what you think happened at Dyatlov Pass. So that's going to do it, guys. I encourage you to go check this out, Dyatlov Pass. It's fascinating. Also, miss any of the stories that out weekly. It'll range from mysteries to scary stuff. It's just generally interesting, darker. Also, be sure to check me out on TikTok. My handle is MrBallen. Same as my YouTube channel. I'm also on 416. Guys, version, young, smart.
Yeah.
And then she was found dead in a water tank at a sketchy hotel. And there's video footage of her wiping her. Elisa Lam was the daughter of Chinese immigrants. She was born in Canada. She even though her family about detailing health struggles, they travel to San Diego, then on to Los Angeles, Santa Cruz, and then on to San Francisco. She was calling this her West Coast tour. So she heads off on this tour. She goes to San Diego, and then she takes an Amtrak train up to Los Angeles. And so she arrives in Los Angeles on January 26th, and she checks into this notoriously sketchy called the Cecil Hotel, which is actually located right near Skid Row. It's a large homeless population, very high crime rate. And in fact, the Cecil Hotel itself, in addition to being located in a pretty seedy area, it had a fairly macabre history itself. It was actually famously associated with the Black Dahlia murder, where the victim had actually been at the bar inside the Cecil Hotel. And including the Black Dahlia, there were 15 other non-natural deaths associated with everything was built in the 1920s. And you would think that it would have been condemned, but in fact, LA has made it a landmark right now, so it's kind of protected, the hotel itself. Anyway, she checks into the Cecil Hotel on January 26th, into a shared hostel-style room with some other tourists in the area. But it would come out in the investigation that she actually had to be moved out of that room due to the complaints of the roommates. So they moved her to a private room. Now, Elisa was traveling alone, and if you combine that with the fact that she was dealing with some mental health issues, her parents were very nervous about this trip. So they had made this deal that in order for her to do this West Coast trip, and so she was doing that. So she takes off, she checks into Cecil Hotel. January 31st, which was the day she was supposed to check out of the Cecil Hotel, she went silent. And her parents immediately were very concerned, and they called the Los Angeles Police Department. The police acted very quickly on this case. They descended on the Cecil Hotel. They they plastered her picture everywhere. They couldn't find her. The hotel staff, they said that, we saw Elisa, and they room, but that any interaction she had with staff, which there weren't that many, was by herself and a normal guest of the hotel. There was a business owner who saw Elisa Lam. She was one of the last people to see Elisa, and she said that she was there purchasing gifts, trinkets, to kind of memorialize the trip through LA. But that was it. And so despite the massive attempts to find her, quite a bit of media attention, not just in LA, but internationally. This was family was from. This was making headlines everywhere. Despite all of that, no one could find Elisa. Then the police were given footage of Elisa in the elevator. And the police released that footage to the public, and it pretty much immediately went viral. No one can make sense of what the heck Elisa is doing in the elevator. She gets into the elevator, she proceeds to press all of the buttons, and then hides in the corner of the elevator. And then she starts poking her head in and out into the hallway as if she's looking for someone. And then eventually she kind of gets into the threshold of the elevator and starts moving her hands around kind of crazily, like she's either talking to someone or I mean, it really looks like she's hallucinating or something. It's very bizarre hand gestures.
No,
and then she
boogeyman.
disappears. And that was the last footage we have of her alive. And what's even stranger is probably right after this video is taken, she goes to the rooftop by her own will, or someone made her go there, and she dies. So we're looking at the last few moments of Elisa's life. Now, the footage, despite its virality and despite how much more attention this gave the case, it didn't actually provide any big breaks, because the footage just shows this woman who seems to be in the elevator. It doesn't show anything that actually happened to her. But after the release of that, over the course of the next 2 weeks, guests at the Cecil Hotel started complaining low water pressure, as well as a foul taste in the water. In fact, one of the guests even said that the water, when she turned it on, had come out black during an So this is now 2 weeks after her disappearance, and now following all of these complaints about the water, Santiago, the maintenance worker for the Cecil Hotel, he goes up to check on the water. He opens up the water tank to see what's going on, and there, lying in the water, is the body of Elisa Lam. So a couple things about the water tank itself. So it's on the roof of the hotel, and in order to get on the door that has an alarm set, so you'd have to know the alarm code. Because if you didn't, and you triggered the alarm, I mean, it goes off across the whole hotel. I mean, someone would have heard this alarm. Or you would have, I guess, taken a fire escape. But that's a fairly obvious thing, and someone would have noticed, and no one claimed to have seen her taking, the fire escape. Then, let's assume you've made it on the roof somehow, either by knowing the code or fire escape. The tank, which is this 4-foot tall tank, is actually about 10 feet off the ground. And in order to there's no ladders anywhere, right? Even if you manage to climb onto the tank, without the use of a ladder, there are these heavy lids on the surface of these tanks. I mean, the hotel doesn't want people getting into the drinking water, so it's pretty well guarded. If you could get the tank to, I think it actually slides off, the opening isn't particularly large, so you'd have to wriggle your way into the tank. And then once you're in, it would be nearly impossible to shut the tank again. And the tank was shut. When Santiago Lopez went up there, the latch to the lid was undone, but the lid was covering the tank. So how did she manage to bypass the alarm, climb onto the water tank without the use of a ladder, open the lid, and then wriggle inside of the tank itself, and then shut the lid, and then, drown? How did that happen? Because her body had decomposed, it's fairly difficult to run any sort of tests of what the heck happened. The coroner wasn't able to determine that this was an accidental drowning. As improbable as that sounds, that's what the coroner's report indicates. Amateur and professional sleuths are fairly divided on what actually happened. Some say look at the audio complaints that were made against Elisa by her roommates that first night at the Cecil Hotel when they had to move her to her own room. People point to that as, indicative of and that, the footage of her in the elevator was just someone having a manic episode, and that's what caused all of this. And there's a fairly large contingent of people who believe that. Others say Elisa just committed suicide. Even though it was a complicated suicide, it was suicide nonetheless. And of course, because this is a very high-profile, unsolved case, there are theories about this being ghosts, or any number of theories. But the bottom line is, despite knowing the what, where, and when, and having footage and timelines, we just don't know. In this case, can agree on is they really want the coroner's report to be re-examined. Not because there was negligence or something, but because there has to be something else there. Another accidental drowning when just the circumstances surrounding her death are so bizarre. Her being able to get onto the roof and up into that water tank without help is a little bit far-fetched. And so, unfortunately, parents, there's probably not going to be closure. already, please smash like and subscribe to my channel. I'd love it if you turned on notifications as well. I'm really making a push to get more of these stories on my YouTube channel. Looking to do 1 or 2 even every week. This is really my primary focus going forward, so please subscribe, like, and turn on notifications. Also, be sure to follow me on TikTok. My handle's the same as YouTube. It's MrBallen. And then also on Instagram, it's over the years to have been abducted by aliens. And realistically, there's no tangible evidence that any human being has ever actually set foot in an extraterrestrial spacecraft or a dimension or anything like that. It's just these crazy stories that happen to them. And while many of these stories are very quickly cast aside as absolute hoax, not true, not accurate, there's one story, one abduction story that is universally regarded as the most believable and most famous alien abduction story. What made this case so famous is that unlike all of the other alien abduction cases where it was usually one person's first-hand account, in this case you have a full-scale police investigation. You have 16 lie detector tests taken by along with witnesses and people who were there, and you have a group of 6 level-headed guys that actually witnessed the abduction tape, stuck to their story, and have passed all lie detector tests and have never changed their story in 40 years. And you would think that at some point you might change your story because they came under incredible scrutiny. I mean, it basically labeled as crazy people for believing that a UFO had abducted Travis Walton. I mean, in a way, all the elements that make this story seem fairly credible. And even if this wasn't an alien abduction, let's say, how do you account for the past lie detector tests that are talking about UFOs? How do you account for the fact that Travis Walton was really missing for 5 years? And there was a full search effort to find him in the area where he would have been. Answer questions, but the story itself of when he was actually abducted, and then his own story once he had been abducted, one of, if not the single most fascinating abduction stories ever. But before we get into today's story, if you are a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, well then you've come to the right channel, because that's all I do, and I upload 3 to 4 of these stories every week. So if that's something that interests you, I would encourage you to gently extirpate the like button and then subscribe to my channel and turn on all post notifications so you don't miss any of my weekly uploads. All right, let's dive into the story. By 1975, Travis Walton, who was 20, had developed a bad boy reputation in his hometown of Snowflake, Arizona. He rode a noisy Harley-Davidson motorcycle through town. He was a wild bull rider, and he was a boxer. And there was a story about Travis when he was with his friends in a car, and they were driving down this road, and a bear jumped out of the woods and landed in the middle of the road and was just standing there. And Travis, without any hesitation, leaps out of his car and chases after this huge bear and scares it into the woods, and in fact chased it up into the woods. Rebel, problem child a little bit, but he was beloved by his friends. He was just like one of those cool guys. He did it his own way. So Travis and the 6 other men that he worked with were loggers. They were given contracts, and they would go out and they would clear trees. And equipment to do this, we're talking chainsaws, saws, and axes. And they would just go out, these blue collar, hard-working type guys, and they would clear areas of trees. Now, it's a dangerous job. I mean, you're cutting down these huge trees, and you're usually working pretty quickly. You're operating chainsaws that are pretty dangerous. And Mike Rogers, the day of this event, he described in a number of his interviews that, you know, the men that he hired, they needed to be people that have, you know, alien encounter story. On November 5th, 1975, Mike Rogers was given a contract to clear out this huge land inside of the Sitgreaves National Forest. And he grabbed his crew, they piled into the one pickup that Mike owned, and Mike knew that this was going to be a really difficult area to cover, and he told his men up front, we're going to be working really hard, so expect long, full days. And so over the first 3 days of the job, even though they were working taking any breaks, behind schedule. At the end of this third day, it's late at night, they've worked all exhausted. They wrap up and they all pile back into Mike's truck, all 7 of them, and they start driving. And as they're road, and again, it's heavily forested. They look off to the right, and there is. They would say in interviews that they all noticed it, but it did not stand out as anything particularly bad. It just could be. And somebody suggested that, oh, it's probably just the moon. You know, it's a full moon. But then one of the guys on the other side of the truck.
Bro, that last piece was the gayest shit I've ever seen.
Shut the fuck up,
I hate fighting like that.
So like, okay, it's not the moon. And then someone suggested, oh, well, maybe it's a forest
Get
fire.
wrecked.
Maybe we should go check it out. That could be a forest fire. But then Mike Rogers, the driver, the crew boss, was like, no, there'd be smoke. There's no smoke or anything. And Travis, who, you know, he's the guy that's jumping out of cars to go chase down bears, and he's like a total kind of adrenaline junkie type. He's like, hey, let's just drive over there and see what it is. Like, I don't know, it could be anything. Let's go check it out. The guys in the truck were a little on edge about it, but ultimately said, you know, what's the harm? We'll drive over. We know there's a road that brings us over to that section of the forest. We'll get a look at whatever this is, and then we'll leave. So they drive down this other little access road, and they come to a clearing where these lights were, and they are astounded at what they see. They were all polygraphed separately about what they saw when they reached this clearing. Each of them described the same thing with slightly different details because it's from their own perspective, and the polygraph tests all showed that they were telling the truth. They saw this disc-shaped craft with what looked like panels of lights on the underside, hovering in a clearing maybe 50 or 100 feet off the ground, not spinning or anything, just floating in midair, as if it was suspended. And the men, in their interviews later on TV shows and books, they would say what struck them was not just the fact that there's this craft here, but how bizarre it was to see this thing defying gravity. It's not moving, but it's hovering over the air, and it's right in front of us. And one of the men even commented at length, because he would build houses, and he was a handy guy. And he started talking about of this craft. He could see that there was really impressive engineering on the underside of this craft. It was just a beautiful machine. And they're looking at it, and Travis is so excited when they get to this clearing. He doesn't even know what he's looking at, but much like the bear, when he jumps out and chases the bear, as soon as they were almost at a spot right next to the ship, he's nobody else, just Travis. And he starts walking just a little ways away from the car towards this craft. The craft doesn't move. The craft is from where they parked maybe 50 or 100 feet away from them, and then 50 or 100 feet in the air. Travis is also dumbfounded, but he's walking towards the ship. And he would say in an interview that he was frightened, but he was mostly curious. He knew he was looking at something that no one knew what it was. The craft, he didn't know what it was, but it was fascinating to him, and he kept walking closer and closer and closer to it. And as the crew kind of came out of seeing this unidentified flying object in the sky, they start yelling for Travis to come back. They had this and they thought you shouldn't go near it, like, come back. Not to mention it's hovering in the air. What if it falls and it lands on you? Like, hey. And it was like like when one person started yelling for Travis to come back, they all did. And so Travis remembered hearing them screaming for him to come back to the car, but he's not really paying any attention. He's still walking. And finally he stops. He's just looking at it. And Travis would say he was just struck at just the beauty of the underside of this craft with all these different panels of lights built into it. It was this incredible piece of machinery. And he's looking at it, and then all of a sudden it starts spinning just a little bit. It starts emitting this noise that all of them reported hearing, this loud mechanical sound. And now the yells from the crew are getting louder and louder. And Travis would say that he knew he needed to turn around and go back. But he just wanted to look for a few more seconds. And he was about to turn and go back to the truck when all of a sudden a beam of light comes out and strikes Travis like a lightning strike. And all of the crew saw this happen. He gets blown 20 feet away. Like he gets lifted off the ground and thrown 20 feet. And they watched it happen. Again, in all of their polygraph tests, they all said the same thing. All passed. He was hit by a ray of light from this UFO, knocked him 20 feet back. Mike Rogers, in panic, along with everybody else in the crew, they just decide to leave. And they're convincing themselves, as Mike is driving away like a maniac, leaving Travis behind, they're convincing themselves that he's dead already. We just watched him get shot by something. We don't know what that is. And they're freaked out. They don't even know what they saw. They're crying. They're hysterical. These are grown men, just absolutely terrified. And they're driving a little ways until finally Mike just hits the brakes and he stops. And Mike is like, we have to go back for him. He was like, if you guys want to stay here and wait for me, that's fine. But this truck is going back to get Travis. And so the idea of waiting out in the open after seeing what they just saw was even worse than going back. They wanted to stay together. So a little bit begrudgingly, although they knew they needed to, they all got back in the truck, turned around and started driving back up to the UFO site. As they make it back up, they notice that there is no lights up there. You know, the craft is gone and there's no Travis. And they get out, and now Mike is uncontrollably crying because he feels like they just abandoned him, and where did he go? Everybody else is in shock. They can't believe it. They start screaming for Travis. They're running around the woods, yelling for Travis, looking for signs of Travis. They really don't know what happened, but they know Travis is not here. And after a little bit of time of looking, they're like, we have to tell the police. And they knew that it was gonna be bad for them when they told police. The story is a UFO came and zapped Travis and now he's gone. That doesn't really sit well with police. But they knew, because they wanted to find Travis and they were very concerned about their friend, they knew they had to tell police. Mike and a few of the other crew were just unable to even think. They were crying, they were upset, and so finally they get to a payphone, the first payphone they saw, because it's 1975, and Ken Peterson, very kind of simple, matter-of-fact guy, you know, recently married, you know, just very simple guy, very level-headed guy. He decides to call the police because he's the only one who is, I guess, composed enough to do it. And so he calls the sheriff's department and he says, you got to come out here. You know, we can't find our friend Travis Walton. We'll have to describe it to you when you get here, because trying to do it over the phone is not going to do it justice. But he's gone and we don't know where he went. So shortly thereafter, Sheriff Marlon Gillespie and Ken Copeland, their partners, they show up at this rest stop where they get to the scene. They see Ken Peterson, who made the call to them, and they're like, all right, tell us what's going on. The crew is now going to the truck. They look distraught for sure. And Ken begins to try to describe what happened. He hasn't said UFO, he hasn't said aliens, he's just said, you know, we were up at the logging site, we had a contract up there, and then, you know, just, it's hard to describe. And Mike Rogers jumps in, he's like, we saw a UFO, and a ray of light hit Travis, and then he disappeared. And the sheriffs are looking at them like, really? And so they stopped them and were like, all right, I need to search your truck to make sure you guys aren't under the influence of something. And they're like, we haven't done anything. We've been working all day. We searched the truck, nothing. They check each of them to see if they're sober, and their field test showed they were all sober. And the Sheriff Gillespie, who is the overall in charge sheriff, even though he was a total skeptic, and so was Sheriff Copeland as well, he would say about that first engagement with the 6 crew members that they were obviously shaken up by something. Something had happened. They don't know what it was, but they were shaken up. And what Sheriff Gillespie believed was that they were creating a hoax to cover up a real crime. He believed that they had harmed Travis Walton and they were using a UFO to cover it up. But he also was thinking to himself, like, this is a bad hoax. It's not very well planned. They don't really have their stories really lined up particularly well. They're not doing a good job explaining it. The only thing they're doing well is acting scared. A couple hours later, the sun's starting to come up because it was super late when all this happened. And Sheriff Gillespie and Sheriff Copeland have organized this huge search effort up in the forest where Travis had gone missing, and the crew members, they're all there as well. A bunch of volunteers showed up and they are scouring the area. I mean, they got dogs out, they got these huge teams looking everywhere, and they can't come up with anything. I mean, they're looking everywhere, there's no sign, there's nothing from Travis. And so while this is all going on, Sheriff Copeland and Sheriff Gillespie have started coming over to Mike Rogers and the rest of the crew and being like, hey, if you just tell us where Travis Walton's body is, like, we'll go easy on you guys. Like, we know you did it. And they can feel that the pressure is really mounting, that if they don't find Travis, even though they didn't do anything, according to their story, they're gonna face serious repercussions, because that's the way the world works. You don't get to say aliens did this and not have any blame placed on you, because there's no proof. They just have their own eyewitness testimony, that's it. And so the crew has started to become very worried about what's gonna happen. They're worried about Travis, of course, but they're starting to see that, like, they're gonna be prosecuted for this unless they find Travis. And so they're all very stressed out, and they noticed during the search, this first day of searching, that these three guys wearing red jackets had these tools that were scanning the ground, almost like a metal detector. And Mike Rogers, he was hoping that during this investigation that they would have people come out that were like paranormal investigators. I guess maybe he was naive to think that the police would actually do that. But he thought, you know, given the fact that we've all said this is a UFO that zapped Travis, who then disappeared, that they would have at least one person representing the kind of paranormal side of the investigation coming out. And so he sees these guys in red with their special tools that seem like a metal detector, and his gut says they're paranormal investigators. And so Mike goes over to them and he's like, hey, what are these tools you guys are doing? Like, what is this? This first day of searching, that these three guys wearing red jackets had these tools that were scanning the ground, almost like a metal detector. And Mike Rogers, he was hoping that during this investigation that they would have people come out that were like paranormal investigators. I guess maybe he was naive to think that the police would actually do that. But he thought, you know, given the fact that we've all said this is a UFO that zapped Travis, who then disappeared, that they would have at least one person representing the kind of paranormal side of the investigation coming out. And so he sees these guys in red with their special tools that seem like a metal detector, and his gut says they're paranormal investigators. And so Mike goes over to them and he's like, hey, what are these tools you guys are doing? Like, what is this? And they look at him and they're like, oh, well, this tests for radiation. We're scanning for radiation in the area. And he asked them, like, well, what group are you guys with? Are you with the sheriff's department? And they just didn't really answer him. They said, oh, you know, we're just checking for radiation in the area. This is just what we do. And Mike sees an opportunity, because when that ship emitted that ray of light that ultimately blew Travis Walton 20 feet and then, you know, evaporated him or something, they were within range of that big ball of lightning, and they were very much in the kind of cone where, had there been radiation coming off of that ship, he believed that perhaps they would have been hit with it. And so he asked the guys with the red jackets on and their little radiation tools to scan the crew's jackets and bodies to see if they were radioactive. And so the crew comes over and they scan them, and there's nothing. There's no trace elements of radioactivity. They're like, no, there's nothing. And then Mike realizes that from the time they called the sheriff until this search, they had all, the crew, gone home and changed, then come out to do this search. And so he thought, well, then, you know, any of the radioactive materials would have been on our clothes, which aren't here, but we have our hard hats in the back of the truck that were out here the whole time. They were potentially exposed to whatever was out there from the ship. Can you test those? And so he brought over one of their helmets, and the guy in red scans his helmet, and the ticker goes all the way over, fully radioactive. And the guy in red, like, looked up at Mike and looked down at the helmet, and he's scanning it, and he's looking at him, like, kind of trying to size him up. And then he turns and he kind of gestures at the other two in red and tells them to stop doing what they're doing. And they come over and they're scanning the helmets as well. And then without any indication of what the results were, what this meant, because Mike is kind of waiting for them to tell them what's going to happen, the guys in red just turn around and say, okay. And they just start walking away. And Mike's like, well, wait, what does this mean? And they don't turn around and they just walk away from the search site. And so the other crew are watching this happen too. And Mike and the crew are like trying to get them to come back, but they're not turning around. They're just leaving and then they're gone. And so Mike goes over to the sheriffs, who they know the sheriffs think they did something to Travis. These are not their friends, but they figured we need to ask them who those guys in red were. So they go over to Sheriff Gillespie and they're like, hey, who are those guys in red jackets with the radiation detectors? And Sheriff Gillespie's like, who? There's no one here looking for radiation. Everyone here is here because I ordered them to be here. Who are they? Where are they? And he's like, well, they just walked over there. They went around the corner there. And Sheriff Gillespie's like, well, I didn't order them there. And it would turn out that they couldn't locate these three people. No one knew who they were. Mike went around and asked anybody who seemed like an authority figure if they knew who these people were. They asked people if they had interacted with them, and no one knew. So after this search that goes on for a couple of days, turns up nothing. There's no sign of Travis. The town of Snowflake, Arizona really turned on the 6 crew members. Everybody believed that they had done something to Travis, that this UFO thing was a hoax and that they harmed Travis and they were using this as a cover-up. And the sheriff department, they really perpetuated that. They were pretty open about, this is not a UFO situation, this is not an alien abduction, this is a missing person case, and frankly, we believe the UFO thing is a hoax. National and international media had picked this story up, and it became this massively viral story all over the world. And news media outlets are converging on Snowflake, Arizona, and they're inundating the sheriff's department with requests for more information about this alien abduction, and it's really frustrating the 2 sheriffs who were leading this investigation, Sheriff Gillespie and Sheriff Copland. And they were already skeptical and really upset about feeling like they were being taken advantage of by these crew members, this hoax, right? That's what they believed it was. And so Sheriff Gillespie and Copland decide, you know what? We're gonna just cut through all the BS here and we're gonna make these boys take a lie detector test. So they go out and get one of the country's best polygraph examiners to come in and administer a lie detector test on each of the 6 crew members. And so one by one over the course of the day, each crew member was tested for 2 hours, same questions, all centering on the criminal side, the kind of foul play angle for Travis Walton. They all go through it. We're gonna just cut through all the BS here and we're gonna make these boys take a lie detector test. So they go out and get one of the country's best polygraph examiners to come in and administer a lie detector test on each of the 6 crew members. And so one by one over the course of the day, each crew member was tested for 2 hours, same questions, all centering on the criminal side, the kind of foul play angle for Travis Walton. They all go through it. We're gonna just cut through all the BS here and we're gonna make these boys take a lie detector test. So they go out and get one of the country's best polygraph examiners to come in and administer a lie detector test on each of the 6 crew members. And so one by one over the course of the day, each crew member was tested for 2 hours, same questions, all centering on the criminal side, the kind of foul play angle for Travis Walton. And it turned out that 5 of the 6 had all shown that they were telling the truth. And the 6th person, it was just inconclusive. It didn't mean that he was lying. It just meant that the test wasn't done very well. And this polygraph examiner had anywhere from a 92 to 98% accuracy rate. He was one of the best in the country. And he even would say, like, it would be so difficult to fake that. To have 5 people, let's say this is all a big hoax and they harmed. And it turned out that 5 of the 6 had all shown that they were telling the truth. And the 6th person, it would be almost impossible to have 5 people be able to pass my examination and have nobody slip up. They were telling the truth. And so the examiner tells the sheriff, and Sheriff Gillespie is dumbfounded because he believed that they were going to find out they were all lying and that this could just be a pure criminal investigation and it would be, let's go find Travis Walton's body. But now the examiner is saying they're telling the truth. And so Detective Gillespie and his partner are like, now what do we do? And then 5 days after Travis's disappearance, Travis shows back up. During numerous interviews, Travis would say that he remembers waking up on a road, and he didn't recognize where he was, but it was nighttime, it was raining, and he sensed a very bright light above him. And so as he's laying, he kind of turns his head to look up into the sky, and he sees what looks like the underside of that ship, because he remembered how struck he was by the beauty of the kind of engineering underneath that disc UFO they saw in the forest. It looked the same. His vision was not great, but he's looking up and he's pretty confident that's what he's looking at. And then it flies into the sky and it's gone. And he's left in total darkness on a road in some place he doesn't know. And he remembers standing up and feeling very weak and depleted and dehydrated. And he just knew that he had to get to civilization. He had to just go in a direction and find someone who could help him, because he was so weak and he would die out there if he didn't find someone who could help. And so he musters the strength to stand up, and he starts kind of staggering down the road. And eventually, through just adrenaline, he just starts running. And luckily, he sees up ahead there is a rest stop. And at rest stops, there's payphones. And he makes his way down, and he goes to the payphone, and he has change in his pocket still. He puts it in the payphone, and he ends up calling his brother. And his brother he can't believe he's talking to Travis, because Travis is probably supposed to be dead at this point. He didn't believe it was Travis, but Travis just said to him over and over again, "It's me. They brought me back." And he tells him where he is, because now he recognizes that this rest stop is actually in Snowflake, Arizona. When his brother picks him up, Travis would say that he believed that this was just minutes after, the initial abduction. He didn't even know he had been abducted. This is like he's coming to and he's like, man, what happened? Like, I was just over at that clearing where I saw this ship, and now I'm over here. Like, what am I doing here? And so Travis's brother is looking at him like, where have you been? We've been so worried about you for the past several days. And Travis, who was kind of almost catatonic, he's in shock. He doesn't know what's going on. He looks at his brother and he's like, what do you mean days? And his brother's like, you've been missing for 5 days. And so Travis would say that when he heard this news, this revelation that he had been missing for 5 days, it absolutely put him into shock. He was in a catatonic state where he couldn't make sense of it. And so he just sat there quietly. And his brother's like looking at him, not really sure what to even ask. He asked a couple times what happened, and Travis just didn't answer because he didn't know. He couldn't explain it. And so Travis's brother decides, instead of just immediately calling the police, I want to bring you to a hospital, because clearly that needs to happen. And frankly, with the media circus, as soon as they find out you're back, it's just going to be mayhem, and I want to make sure you're taken care of first. So he drives to Phoenix, Arizona, and he brings him to a hospital. And he asks the doctors to be discreet, and he has a doctor do an examination. The doctor knew who Travis Walton was because he'd been following the news. And he's doing an examination of Travis, and he was malnourished and he was tired and looked very sick. But there was no physical wounds, with the exception of he had one puncture site in his arm, in the crook of his arm. Travis was not a drug user, so it wasn't like that was, a mark from using drugs. It was a puncture site, and they assumed someone had recently put a needle in his arm. And also the doctor drug tested him and tested his blood, and there was no drugs in his system. It wasn't like he'd been using any sort of substance. So he kind of had a clear bill of health, minus the injection site and looking pretty ragged. And so after the examination, Travis's brother brings Travis back to his home in Phoenix, Arizona. As soon as they get back, his home phone is getting constant phone calls. It had made its way to the sheriff's department back in Snowflake, Arizona, and they are nonstop calling Travis's brother. Like, hey, we hear he's back. We have to talk to him. We have to talk to him. Sheriff Gillespie, he drives all the way to Phoenix. He goes in and he sits down to talk to Travis. And Sheriff Gillespie would say that Travis looked like he was in shock. He looked like he had been through something traumatic. It did not seem like he was acting. And he starts asking Travis what happened. And Travis, he does mention the UFO. He mentions seeing this thing in a clearing. He gets struck by some light. He doesn't know what it was. And then, he's on the road 5 days later, and he can't really make sense of what happened. He just didn't really know what happened over the 5 days. And finally, Sheriff Gillespie just kind of doesn't really give up. He's like, well, we have no way to arrest him. We have no proof of anything. And so we decided we're going to be in touch, and he drives back. And then media starts showing up. Huge news trucks start showing up outside. Everybody found out, because this was a huge story, where he was, and everybody wanted answers. Finally, the National Enquirer, they reached out and they said, hey, if you give us an exclusive story, if Travis speaks to us about what happened to him, we will get you out of here. We'll bring you to a private location, and we'll even pay to have Travis undergo a whole other battery of tests that are not typically done to see if they could figure out what had happened to him. And so they agree to go with the National Enquirer. So by the time he's actually sitting there looking at the National Enquirer, he's had a little bit of time to maybe let his memory kind of kick back in about what had happened. And he's having these flashes of memory of what happened over those 5 days. Because initially all he could remember was seeing the craft and then being on the road 5 days later. And so when he's sitting down with the National Enquirer people, he begins to recall what actually happened over those 5 days. And so this is what he said happened. He said that he remembers getting out of the truck and walking up to this craft. And he remembers his crew members yelling at him to come back. He knew they were yelling at him to come back. He just wanted to look at the craft a little bit longer. And then right as he was about to turn around and head back, the craft started moving. This loud kind of mechanical, eerie sound is being made. And before he had a chance to run back, he gets hit with this lightning bolt of some kind. Then he remembers being in the presence of some doctors. He saw white lab coats, masks, and facial coverings, and he's kind of in and out of consciousness, and he's
this Friday, Brendan Schaub's Showtime special. I think you'd be surprised.
Yeah, just watch. You got to tune in.
Watch it or die.
You're a fan of this show, then watch his Showtime special. Otherwise, you know what? We don't accept you as a fucking fan. And as a family either.
And by the way, you get 30 days of free Showtime if you watch it.
Yeah, so tune in.
Tune in.
And tweet along, you know what I mean?
And if you tune in, Chris will come to your house and do a private show.
Yeah, see, okay, so this is not true. I knew it was not going to be true.
You should be more supportive as a friend.
I am supportive. I do think you should watch it, and I'm going to watch it, but I'm not going to show up live. But you should watch Brendan Schaub's
I'll give you
Showtime
Chris's
special.
phone
You
number.
should be surprised. Friday night, I believe it's don't give him my phone number.
All right, well, anyway, let's start the show.
But it's, 7 p.m.-ish Friday.
7 p.m. Friday.
Schaub, right?
What?
Promo code Schaub.
And promo code Schaub for what? For
Showtime.
For Showtime.
30 days.
Nice.
30 days free. All right, bye-bye.
Cool.
Well, guys, it's Chris D'Elia.
No, it's Chris D'Elia Day.
I know, but most...
Oh, that's dumb the way it started, huh? You're getting a phone call? Oh, how professional is this fucking thing?
No, hey!
Oh,
whoa.
fuck this, dude. First of all, this is too small. The end table's too small. It's not big. It's not fucking heavy enough. So when you move the microphone, I take with it because I don't know my own strength. But that's what they're saying about me now, right?
Listen, nobody's saying that at all. Nobody's saying that at all.
All right,
you dance in your underwear in front of,
millions.
Hundreds of thousands of
millions.
People. Don't say millions.
Dude, here we are, Fighter and the Kid. It's the #2 podcast right under congratulations.
We did numbers and we're actually bigger than
you guys need to, since you already listened to congratulations this week, and this one is, you're like, okay, well, I'll listen to this one too, I guess.
No.
Well, I'm on this one as well.
No,
so hello, guys, and I'm with my guest host.
No, you're not my guest.
Special guest host.
You're not going to take this over.
Brian Callen.
You're not going to take this over. So everybody knows you as Chris D'Elia. And
D'Elia.
That's what I'm saying. So for you guys who say
Everyone
that Chris D'Elia guy, what's that Chris D'Elia guy like?
No, they don't say that.
It's Chris D'Elia.
They don't say that.
Right?
They don't say that.
Now,
they know most of what my name is.
Couple of things I want to say. We performed last night.
Okay, and I have pointers for you. So
and
go ahead.
I was better, right? So
No,
but that's what they were all like. You're better than him.
We went,
and I went. Well, he didn't really have time because he got thrown off by the crowd because he got thrown off.
No, I didn't. You went. Who went first? Who went first? Me or you? I forget.
I went first.
So that's what we call an opener.
Don't forget.
So that's what we call an opener.
I'm not an opener. I was happened to have been in the lineup and could have chosen.
We happened to be. They said, Chris, do you want to go?
No, Mark Hayes, who's from Ireland, said, he said, would you mind if I put you up first? Because if Chris has to follow you, then he'll be depressed.
If that was Mark's accent, he would be sexy, but it's not. It's fucking horrible.
He's got a very...
His accent is bad.
Yeah. He's you. He's the Irish Chris D'Elia.
He's me if, like, I was on the streets for 4 months.
He's you if you came off the boat from Ireland and you had no...
Don't do your accents.
My accents are so spot on, though, it's kind of
Let me ask you a question, seriously?
Yeah.
What little boy is freezing outside because you stole his outfit? You stole his whole outfit. Look at that little boy shirt you have on, dude.
This is from All Saints.
Oh, and I love All Saints, but that shirt, it's a little boy shirt.
Okay, listen.
Yeah.
The stripes that go this way are flattering.
They're horizontal stripes for those of you listening to this.
Which make my shoulders.
But it makes Brian
bring out as broad show my shoulders for the broadness that they actually are.
You look like you know what you did? You look like you put on the outfit and then grew up. That's what you look like. That's what you fucking look like. What the fuck? My future. Oh shit, dude.
Hey, don't put your
fuck. I put my sunglasses on.
I'm glad you brought this up.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to ask you.
I had to put my sunglasses on.
So obnoxious because your future's so bright.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah. Okay, so you get it.
I don't get it because I want to ask you seriously. I want to get serious, and I want to start with a question.
All right.
Start with a question.
My future's so bright. It sucks, man. I need to wear sunglasses indoors.
You don't. I want to start with this question.
I'm ready.
Let's start with a general question.
I'm ready.
Right? Because I'm looking at you. You got holes in your jeans. You guys.
Because I live life. I live life.
I know. So let's start with this, and then we'll dilate down. You know what dilate means?
I know what dilate means, man.
You don't read. But so
I read, bro.
Well, you know. Okay, but so you read you read Twitter and stuff. So,
no. I read. You know I'm going to read?
Instagram comments, but
I know I'm going to read soon. Your tombstone in 5 years because you're too old. It's all good. I'll be there.
What's my tombstone going to say? What are you going to say at my funeral?
You know what it said? Honestly, your tombstone's going to say, he tried. And it's going to be ... question mark. It's going to trail off. Your tombstone's going to trail off.
No. What are you going to say at my funeral if they ask you to speak?
I'm going to honestly go like this. I'll speak. And then I'll go on there. And then it'll be like, ladies and gentlemen, Chris D'Elia. And everyone, when they're done cheering or whatever, like I'll be
like, that's my funeral. And
I know. And I'm going to be like, guys, he died. Guys, he died. I'm going to have to say that a fucking shitload.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be up there with my iced Americano sipping. And
that's so disrespectful.
But funerals are early. So I'm going to be like, guys, he lived life and he changed the world in the little ways that people do sometimes. And also, and I'm going to let out a big fucking rip fart. I'm going to let out a fucking huge, just fucking. It's going to come out like that. And I'm going to go like this. Oh, shit, I'm sorry. And then I'm going to take my sunglasses off and I'm going to go with my mouth. And I'm going to fucking have two big middle fingers. I'm not going to do it like they do, like that. I'm going to fucking extend the whole things. And I'm going to go like this. My new special comes out whenever and whenever the date is. Oh my
God. So you're using my funeral as a launching pad and you're going to disrespect me by...
Yeah, I'll take my sunglasses off in the middle of it though.
That's so bad. Can I ask you, okay, on that note.
Next real question.
So you're going to be 40.
I'm not even close to 40.
No, you're going to be 40 in months, right?
I'm 39. And it's going to be 9 months.
Right. So really in like 14 months or something, or 15, whatever it is, you're going to be 40. Now, so your audience...
A year is 12 months.
So your audience, and you're getting gray. So your audience that's young is going to... My audience it's going to shrink.
My audience goes from fucking... They did the fucking demographic thing. I went to the demographic place.
And they're 18.
And they were like, your audience is literally 9 to 72. They go like this. And I go like, what? That's a big audience. But what's the demo? And they go like this. They're looking at these spreadsheets and they're all fucking, it's like they're like this. And they're like, well, I'm looking here, but it's everyone. They go.
No.
They go, it's everyone. And I go like this, for fuck's sake. And I took my sunglasses off and I fucking walked out of there, dude.
Well, who was it that said, who was this?
You've seen guys in lab coats and shit and like, fucking.
So it was a lab?
I guess, yeah.
Scientists?
Yeah.
Who looked at all the numbers?
100%. They go like this. They go like this. These reports, we've never seen something like this, because they're fucking dorks, Man, so they're like, they're just tossing over fucking page after page.
They have lists?
Yeah, they're like, I've never seen anything like this. Usually demos are like 15 years or so. And they go, yours is just, and one guy goes like this and he's shaking. And he's fucking shaking and he says, Mr. D'Elia, your demo, and I said, what? Say it. And he said, it's 9 to 72.
And then did you go?
And he pissed. And he pissed his fucking white pants.
Did you go, all right.
I go like this. Well, I guess that's how it's going to be. And I fucking kept my sunglasses on and I strutted out of there. And on the way out, as the door closed, I fucking shit my pants. And I didn't give a shit. It went... And I sat in my car all the way home.
And you heard this. Somebody get a bucket.
Yep. And I drove all the way home with the shit in my pants because I don't give a fuck, dude.
You just sat in your shit?
Yep.
Okay, and let me ask you this. So I appreciate all that.
No problem.
So we know that now you're going to be 40, which means you're going to be an adult almost, because you're not an adult. You're a tall boy.
You're so damn right. I'm not a fucking adult.
Let's start with
a
general question so I can help you. What do you think you're fucking doing? I just want to start with that. No,
bro.
No, I want to just start with that general question. Like, stop doing that.
Because it's my future's in front of me, right?
Take your sunglasses
We
off.
can both agree that the future's not behind us, right? Can we agree that the future's not behind us?
We can agree with that.
Okay. Now, our eyes are where? In front of us or behind us? Our eyes are where? Our eyes are where? On our face.
They're in front of us.
And the face is in the front, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if our future, now we agreed, is in front of us.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. And our faces face forward.
Oh, man.
Right. Okay.
Oh, you're
now
being
my
pedantic.
future.
I can tell
What
you
is
what that
it,
means.
dude?
It's too bright.
Right. So I have to put these fucking shades on. Otherwise.
Oh my God! Don't
I
say
get
otherwise
cataracts. Now you're familiar with cataracts because you for sure had cataract surgery.
I did not.
Because you're 52.
No.
And it's all good.
No, it's
but
not.
that's how it is.
Don't sip your coffee like that. You're my guest on my podcast.
Dude, it's so respectful how I'm being, to be brutally honest with you.
No, it's not.
Yeah. So he goes like this. I'm talking about all this shit. And he goes like this, Chris. I say, yeah, and I'm on a conference call at this point,
Yeah.
right? And I hear a click, 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 and I say, guys, and one agent left, and he says, Chris, and I said, what? I said, what were all those clicks? And he said, the rest of the agents they hung up, and I said, what for? And they said, they didn't want to be on the phone for this part, and I said, why? What's going on? You know, you're making me nervous. You're making me anxious.
Yeah,
and he
yeah,
goes
yeah.
like this.
I'm anxious hearing the story.
I've tried to stop this. And I said, stop what, dude? Just lay it to me straight, man. What's going on? Am I getting canceled? And he says, no. I said, well, what is it, man? And he said, they're making a documentary about your shoulders.
I have
said,
trouble
what?
believing that they would do this.
Why the fuck would they do that?
Right.
And they go like this. They say, because they're just getting out of control.
No.
They go like this. My agent says,
No.
and I say, yeah. And he says, I was here all along.
Embody the Kung Fu spirit.
Wait, hold on.
So
how is it? It's spelled just Kung Fu?
Kung Fu, yeah.
But you're saying Kung Fu.
Well, that's how it's said. I mean,
So-
because I studied in China for so long, but and my master's.
Okay, so they're making a documentary about you.
When you train as long as I have, you
Which is
train as
2
someone.
years?
You train in Kung Fu, and when
No, don't.
and you get to a point where you actually become
Oh, don't.
Kung Fu.
You're not. No, dude.
No, I know.
You don't become.
Embarrassing.
No, but what's
hate it.
embarrassing is the way you're saying
I
it.
agree with you.
No, but
I'm
just
not the
say
one who
Kung
came up-
Fu.
I'm not the one who told Steven Spielberg to call it Kung Fu.
Hold on a
Right?
second,
Right?
dude.
Fuck.
You slipped.
Jim, try to edit that.
So you're
Steven
saying.
Spielberg part
So
out.
you're saying that Steven Spielberg
edit that out.
is making a documentary about you.
Yeah, I can't say his name, but
Okay, so whoever you said is making a documentary about you,
yeah.
and they're calling it Kung Fu.
No,
What?
Kung Fu.
Kung Fu.
Kung Fu.
Kung Fu.
Almost.
I mean, I'm not getting it?
Kung Fu.
Kung Fu.
Okay, so you're
I mean, I'm doing it the way you're doing it.
there's a little bit of a U, a silent U, but you've got to pronounce the U. Try it again.
Kung Fu.
Kung Fu.
Kung
So you see what I did?
Or say what?
Kung Fu.
So you go up at the end?
So if I were to say, let's go and train Kung Fu,
Right. Kung Fu.
there you go.
Okay, listen, man.
You have to give it the respect, right?
Well, okay, but what? But okay, so you're a comedian.
Yeah. Who can fell you with an open hand?
All right, so
You know what I mean?
And that's and they're making a documentary,
which I would never use.
Well, okay, sure,
but I have it.
All right, okay.
So I have
the capability. You have the capability.
So in the other martial art, as you know, that I studied for fucking ever.
Don't say
karate.
Oh no. Okay. See, you're doing it in a Japanese accent, right?
Well, I mean,
and I don't like that, right? Mm-hmm. And I know you train, right? But you know I've trained.
I am training.
All right, you've trained, and maybe you train still. All right, I'll give you that much. You know, I've for 6 years did jiu-jitsu. You know that I've done for 6 years. I've done jiu-jitsu. 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 I've done jiu-jitsu, right?
Right? You have to say jiu-jitsu.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
But you're saying jiu-jitsu.
No. I've trained for 6 years.
I know, but it's obnoxious to... You have not trained long enough to actually call it jits or jiu-jitsu.
Jiu-jitsu. Jits. I just say jits.
That's not... You've not that. Yeah. All right, so anyway, we've established...
I can fuck you up, right?
What?
Like, I gotta fuck you up.
What?
Like, does it count as fucking someone up if there's no shots or anything? But the guy who loses goes. No.
Dude, you know that I could stop your heart,
dude.
Right?
No, I don't.
By the way, you're almost 40 and I'm 52, and this is how we're talking.
Dude, I would.
Like this is so.
How about that? There's fucking guys who do business and like crunch numbers and shit, and this is our job.
Yeah.
And there's doctors. There's doctors.
Yeah.
But this is our job.
Well, I see that. Like, I stopped when I did my last corporate gig. I don't think I can do them anymore because the rules and the protocol that you have to observe. Like, when you work for Google, or there is a puritanical.
Yeah.
I haven't worked for Google, so I don't want to say this, but but a lot of offices, it seems there's this puritanical way of speaking and behaving. I just couldn't.
I wouldn't even know at this point. It's probably gotten so out of hand, you know. Like the only thing I know is from fucking school when I was in school.
Yes.
But I'm sure it's gotten way worse and way worse since I was in school.
You can't hug anymore. Like so, I think my network.
And you creepy perv, so you like to you creepy perv.
Yeah, well,
so
no, I'm not. No, I just like to hug without pants. But but you can't like. There's certain things like humor. You have to be really careful.
Yeah.
Like I'd be fired immediately.
Yeah, I know, and it's weird too because it's definitely like a problem with like fringe groups. Like because here's the deal.
That's right.
When I did a show in Connecticut, a college show.
Yeah,
and
you did.
Yeah.
When?
A month ago.
Okay.
And the show was great.
Did they warn you about anything or
no? Otherwise I won't do the show.
Yeah.
And so I did the show. It was great. Applause breaks. Everyone's happy. This and that. And then one person writes a blog about the show, and they said I was funny. It wasn't like bashing me, but they were like, this one part was just too this and that, and it was offensive, and it's just like
because that's called virtue signaling.
Right.
So this is a culture where if you can find anything racist, anything homophobic,
you're
anything
a hero.
transphobic,
you're a hero.
You get brownie points.
Yeah, you're a hero.
So it doesn't matter what your intention. It doesn't matter that you're not a racist or anything like that. But if they can just find something anywhere.
It was like she had to find something that was wrong with it.
Yeah.
And
it is a fringe.
It is a fringe because my point, and that's how you prove it, is that the show was great. Everyone was laughing. Right. Everyone was giving me applause breaks. And then the one person writes the thing.
Yes.
And then anyone who hasn't been at the show, they read that.
That's right.
So it's like.
That's right. But I do think that people are aware. Like at the end of the day, you're still selling out. It's not like people are going, I can't go to Chris D'Elia because this blog. But it is. Oh, that's not
what
I have to get you more educated.
No, I know I knew one of the Ninja Turtles did the fucking Sistines chapters.
I want to know about. Have you had celebrities?
100%.
Who's the most famous celebrity?
And it was like in the world.
Yeah.
They don't save 2 turtles. They maybe did one video where a turtle took a straw out of its fucking nostril.
Its nose, yeah.
Turtles.
But if we can just save one.
But they did.
Okay.
And that was a freak thing.
Yeah. What's that?
Well, that's the fire.
What is
right?
it?
So.
Oh my God, that's obnoxious. You can't.
What?
Say something and then snap twice.
Well, but for emphasis. Right? It's for emphasis.
But
right?
that's not.
You know what's weird about Brian is he What?
well,
What are you talking about? Big tits?
you have bulbous tits. You know, and that's an estrogen.
This.
we would go down to La Jolla at the comedy store, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And then he was doing this fucking deer that got shot. And I was like, this motherfucker is doing a deer that got shot. And he was so physical. He was more physical than me. And then I would get up and do my physical stuff. And they weren't laughing the same way. I was like, this son of a bitch is more flexible and being even more ridiculous than me.
I don't know.
And then he was then he goes, you're the reason I do everything. You know?
No, I didn't say that, man.
Something like that.
No, it wasn't even near that.
No,
I said, oh, nice to meet you. But I want to talk about something more important, is that you're the kind of guy who sits down and reads a paragraph out of a book.
Yeah.
And that pisses me off.
No, because you were boring me already.
No. We sat down, and he literally opened a book and starts reading, and I was like, Brent's going to be here in 2 seconds. What are you trying to get done, though?
No.
He's just trying to read a...
No, he's getting ready for his drop in knowledge.
Yeah, but
now, whatever that is, pisses me off.
I fill my brain pan, and I like to get those thoughts out to other people as well.
Okay, so you...
To my fan base.
So what
likes
you're
a
doing
mental
is,
workout.
So what you're doing is you're finding something so you can share it with the podcast, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The people
they could just look it up.
No.
They could
Just tell them to look it
Tell them to
up.
go buy the book.
No.
Yeah, tell them to go buy the book.
No. It comes
Brian's
from my
book
mouth.
of the week, maybe?
Yeah, you didn't do shit.
No, listen to me.
You just reciting.
Hey.
We call it regurgitating.
Yeah.
Both
You're like a mama bird.
No.
Regurgitating info.
Both of you need to know something.
And the fan base is the baby birds, and you're just...
You mama bird? You mama bird?
Open your fucking mouths,
Yeah.
you baby birds.
Don't do that. So we agree, don't do the dropping knowledge.
You don't come into my podcast and start rearranging.
You're a
our
comedian.
segments.
You make money talking about wanting to be a fucking Russian spy or whatever.
That was my old shit.
So
all right?
don't
I'm
fucking
doing new stuff now.
So you don't need to. So don't have a bit called dropping knowledge.
Don't mock
You
it.
have a bit about how you want to save a girl from fucking the guys from Taken.
Yeah, well, that's
don't have a bit called dropping.
Don't say it like that. Don't pause when you say it. Just say dropping knowledge. All right. Has your skin? Do you think has your skin ever seen the sun? Like,
dude,
it's a question.
I don't want it to look like leather when I get your age. I think I probably told this maybe on another podcast, but we were at dinner. It was me, you, Josh Lawson, Will Sasso, and Craig Colchin. I think.
Chad Colchin.
What'd I say?
Chad Colchin.
Yeah, Chad Colchin. And
Tom Cruise.
no, it wasn't Tom Cruise.
Brad Pitt. I hang out with those guys, so I always confuse them.
Sounds like a nice dude.
Okay, so anyway, yeah, it wasn't them.
I don't know.
Okay, so and I had a set and Chad and I was like, you want me to sign it? They were like,
I feel like it's a parrot.
well, you're fucking wrong. Spell my name right, but
I just messed up.
I know.
Listen. Yeah, dude. Let me explain something to
No,
you. See that?
Go back. That's not even me.
Hey, don't be
down
No,
middle.
Hey, don't talk.
Fuck
shit
this
that
guy.
way. Don't
Fuck this guy.
Now the problem is that looks a lot like a macaw.
It literally.
Here's
Here's the
you
thing.
say that. It does look like a parrot.
Here's
Yeah.
the thing. No, here's why you're
That's not an
saying
eagle.
that.
Parrot.
Here's why you're saying that.
It's not white?
because it's still, which is the point, and it's not like
That's
this.
the joke.
That's the fucking joke. You pieces of shit.
Don't be that aggressive,
Bro,
It's a fucking eagle, obviously,
Look at
and I
me.
won't
Look at me.
stand for
So
it.
your artist drew a fucking parrot. It's not a big deal.
It's an eagle dressed as a parrot. Is that fair?
No, it's not fair.
But it's
a
got-
fucking
it's a
eagle.
parrot
with
It
an
literally
eagle hat
looks
on.
nothing like a parrot, and that's final.
Look at how beautiful they are.
Yeah.
Is your company called
Shut the
Small
fuck
Hawk?
up, Brian. You know, look how beautiful they are.
Hey, January and February is pilot season, yeah?
Hold on. You don't text while you're doing our podcast.
Yeah, I do, dude. I was texting, "Get me out of here." Call me with an emergency.
Hey.
Call me right now with a fake.
I sent it to so many people. Copy paste. Copy,
Also,
paste.
look at your shitty posture.
Fuck
Sit
this
up.
place, man.
Your trainer wouldn't appreciate this.
Sit
I'll
up.
sit like this till I die.
Hey, did your
Sit
trainer?
up.
Hey, Chris, did your trainer have you on a diet too?
Yeah, dude. But I ate so many fucking ice creams last night.
Why?
Wanted to.
Why?
Wanted to.
What kind of ice
You
cream?
can't just do whatever you want.
Yeah, you can actually. Fucking cookies and ice cream sandwiches, bro. Wanted them. Ate. You're done. And you're just so exhausted. You're so exhausted.
You're gonna hold me?
I just hold you.
I'll punch you. I
Like a
jack
boa
you.
constrictor.
You don't.
You got that sharp nose. I flatten that nose. One shot to that, and possibly, first of all, my hand gets cut on that fucking beak you call a nose, right?
Yeah.
Right?
And
No.
then your hands go to your face and you go, no, please.
No. I want to fight you.
Why? You right now?
Yeah, I won't fight you. In the hallway after this.
In the hallway?
Yeah, I want to put on World Star.
Your whole career and your whole persona is wrapped up in your hair. What happens if it falls out?
Dude, I play interesting roles. I start playing interesting
Are you
roles.
losing your hair?
I get real fat, or I get, well, I mean, you lose hair, you get old. Minimalism.
No, you're not rugged.
And so United, but
when
I've
go on
seen you talk
stage,
shit to United.
crush.
Well,
Okay, get me to Austin
to
on
crush
time.
to crush ass.
Yeah.
Yes.
You don't always crush. Don't be that way. You don't have to like self-aggrandize. Don't congratulate yourself. Just talk about the airlines.
Okay, I will.
All right, just stick to the
All
airlines.
right, so you're an airline.
Yeah.
So go get me on time
Yeah.
to where I need to go so I can get on stage
Yes.
to sold out shows and murder.
No. I just said don't
I
do
know,
that.
that's what I'm saying.
I said
By the way, I
don't.
farted when I said that.
Okay, don't fucking fart and
Hey, bro,
congratulate
it's a
yourself.
small studio.
Just talk about the airline and stick to that.
If I'm waiting in an airline, in
Yeah.
an airport,
Now, careful.
for my...
You hesitate to tell Brian.
I don't want to...
You don't hurt his feelings.
Listen, my product.
Okay,
You
nobody's
were
saying that.
spawned
You
from
want him to get out of that shadow.
No, see, and you're
it's like you're
falling
Joe
victim to-
Montana. He's
Yeah.
Steve Young.
No,
right.
You
no.
need to get out of the
Look at
shadow.
me. You've grown your full set of mature wings. Get out there and fly.
Here's the deal.
Don't be scared.
When you
You
say
have, like,
that,
yeah.
and then you suck him into it as well, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you're saying about the," and don't
About
do the
what?
quarterback comparison thing.
What?
It's not like that.
What do you mean?
What I'm saying is, I never knew who you were
What?
Wow.
until years after I started stand up.
Whoa.
You playing in coffee shops, you understand?
Whoa.
And what I did
Whoa.
was eclipsed you,
Whoa.
and that's
Don't
okay.
say-
And that's okay.
What's don't say
wow.
It's okay, but people started to be like, "Who's that guy on Crystalia's Instagram?"
No.
Sometimes
No.
You know what? Can I do another football reference?
Okay.
He's Drew Bledsoe. You're Tom Brady.
it is like that.
Yes.
It is
Not-
more like
it's not
that.
like that.
It is.
It's not like
and
that.
just because you're making your voice lower,
No, because I'm getting serious now.
no, you're not getting
Listen up.
serious.
Listen up.
Okay, what's up?
Fly.
Oh no,
Okay.
and I know what you're saying that, but
just
I don't
let
like
you out
when
of
you
your
say
nest.
that. I never knew who you were. But dude, can I tell you guys something?
What?
Honestly, this is the craziest thing, but for months now,
Yeah.
I've been driving around, and like the other day, like I was walking down the street the other day, and some guy drives by and he says, "Why?" And I'm like, "What?" And he's driving, right? He just drives by. Now my friend Joel.
Revolution MMA.
Yeah, I went.
Toronto.
I went.
Bit off.
That's
You
interesting.
can be busy.
Right. I don't know how busy he.
You could mule drugs in those saggy,
that's
those
really
bags
shitty.
under your eyes.